Hello, fellow gamers. Cryptic Panther here with Beyond the Games and another content creator interview. And I'm excited, overly excited, to bring along with me in this journey, Bearded Guys Gaming.
Heyo. What's up, guys?
All right, so Joe and Matt, if you haven't been watching these guys on Twitch and watching their YouTube videos, what have you been doing with your life? I've been watching Joe and Matt for quite a while. They were one of the first CFD streamers I really got behind and started watching on a regular basis and sub to for many months and enjoyed many streams. So for them to honor me with their presence and join me in this content creator review, I'm over the moon. But enough pandering. Let's get into it. So I guess first off, what was your motivation for streaming and I guess with your YouTube channel doing as well as it is as well? What behind your content creation? What kind of got you started into doing this?
Well, we were already playing video games in our spare time, in our free time. So we were playing World of Warcraft like for hours on end on the weekends and stuff like that. And people would always just be like, you know, are you guys twins? Are you guys best friends? Or like, are you guys brothers? Because we were always out places together. And one day I just told Matt, I was like, yo, is there any like two people on one channel type thing on Twitch? I was like, because we're already playing video games, so why don't we try doing a Twitch channel?
So it was more or less just kind of like, hey, let's just give those a whirl.
Yeah, it actually kind of something I tell people don't do. So after doing it for many years now, I'll tell people just because you're just playing games, don't just assume that, hey, I should be a streamer. And that's actually kind of how we started. So maybe bad advice now. I don't know now that I think about it.
You're not sure what's good advice or bad advice. All right. Well, that's great, Joe. What about you, Matt? You got any great advice you don't want to give to anybody?
Don't stream with Joe.
No, well, actually, that's part of the best advice is find you a Joe. That way you can just kind of sit there and play the game and let him do all the talking.
I plan on putting you on the spot a few times, Matt, if I can, because as someone who has been in your streams a lot, this is one thing that I struggled with when I was doing my streaming was Joe, and it's one thing that I've always thought was an amazing skill of yours. I know, Matt, you do a fairly good job yourself, and I'm not downplaying your talent, Matt, but with Joe, your ability to play and to keep up with chat, how in the hell do you do that?
Well, I think if you on like from like a far away view, it seems like I'm doing okay, right? Like playing the game and then talking. But when we get into like a super competitive type thing, that's when I feel like it hurts us more than anything. So I can broadly talk to people and keep up with chat, have no problem with it. But I'm also not playing on the highest caliber of skill or competitiveness. Now, luckily, Matt and I don't play a lot of like super competitive games, so that's why I think that builds us well. But when we've done things in the past, like Twitch Rivals and stuff like that, where the competition's kind of on, I actually feel kind of bad because I am not talking to chat, and it kind of bothers me.
And I think a lot of it goes into like the games we're playing too.
Yep, 100%.
Like if we're playing like Sea of Thieves or 7 Days to Die, a game that we're comfortable in, we've got thousands of hours playing, we're kind of like on autopilot, a lot of times. Whereas if we're testing out a new game or trying something different for the first time, we're a lot more quiet with the chat because we're trying to learn the game and figure out what's going on and this and that. So a lot of it is based on the games we're playing, on how we, and it's not that we don't want to talk to chat. It's just we've got so much going on with the new games, all of that we kind of focus on the game and it turns away from us not talking to chat as much.
I also have ADD, which helps me out because I'm looking up at the screen. When I look at chat, so I break it down in multiple like places too. There'll be conversations I'll pick out to talk about, and then others that I actually see and then go back to at a different point within like a 5-minute section, as well as play the game. So it kind of serves my ADD well, I think, to stream and chat and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that was one thing, like I said, whenever I was doing my stream, it was, even if my chat was quiet, it was because I'd be engrossed in the game and I'd look over like, oh, I missed a message. And up to there, I'm watching your stream and like, I mean, your guys' chat sometimes can get pretty streaming right along, and all of a sudden Joe's just rhyming off answers. And I'm like, damn, if I could only had like a quarter of that ability, I might be all right with keeping up with my chat, even it was like not even close to being what your guys' was ever. But yeah, that was one thing that I always admired with your ability to monitor chat and then play the game. But I just figured, you were going to blame chat for you always falling off the boat and Sea of Thieves.
He tries.
I mean, look, true.
He tries.
It's true.
Chat has a voodoo doll of me.
They just drop it on the floor every time you fall.
Occasionally, they chuck me across the room. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to see what the comments I get on that after this goes live.
Chat.
There might be a few people that have a difference in opinion on that. So I know from past, I've played with you fellas before, but the kind of question kind of encompasses a few different things, but like playing with viewers, holding giveaways, what type of interactions outside of like Twitch chat have you engaged in, and do you have any benefits or drawbacks to interacting with the people from your stream outside of maybe the streaming world directly?
So, like we love our community, right? They support us. I mean, you got to think about it. We only do what we do because our community supports us, right? And Matt and I love engaging with people outside of the community, like outside of the actual stream itself and stuff like that too. But we do have to kind of sometimes set some boundaries too, because we are meeting people from all over the world with all types of different personalities, and sometimes those lines can get crossed if you're not careful, and stuff like that. So we have a really good mod team that we implement that helps us out with a lot of the stuff that's outside of stream sometimes, and we try to sorry, I was totally distracted there. I apologize.
That's all right.
But I mean, like, what do you mean by your question? Like, what are you trying to?
Like, I mean, I know, like, you mean, like, for you guys are, like, you're pretty active in your own Discord, but, like, outside of Twitch, like, is there much, back and forth on Twitter with fans? Is there, like, anything that's not directly, like, on Twitch chat that you guys, on a regular basis?
I want to say, like, currently right now, when we're not streaming, we're playing World of Warcraft, getting back into playing WoW. We took some time away from it, and with the new expansion coming out, like in less than a month now, like we built a community guild, really based with our community from Twitch, but that's outside the stream. Like, we don't plan on streaming World of Warcraft. That's, all we do, that's in our spare time and stuff like that. And it's all, community members. So that's one thing that's been a lot of fun, like the last couple of weeks. As we get back into it.
And actually, it's kind of funny because like some of the people that have joined this, so like we've talked about on stream, like saying like, hey, we're doing this thing, right? And we've had people that have joined. There are people that have joined and are that we all get in the Discord at night and talk and play. Some people screen share their game, like gameplay, what's going on. There are people that normally are lurkers in our stream that are a lot more active and talking to us during, in the night hours when we're playing World of Warcraft off stream.
Okay.
So that's been interesting.
Okay. That kind of, I guess, rolls into another question I had for you. Like, what games do you play from, like, off stream that you possibly don't ever see yourself ever streaming?
I'll let Matt go first. His list is smaller.
My list is definitely smaller. So basically, and even as of the last couple of weeks, it's even smaller. The only real game I play outside of stream is World of Warcraft. I do like a little bit of like the insiders with Sea of Thieves, stuff like that. But for the most part, when I'm at home, I'm in World of Warcraft. I do dabble a little bit in Lords Mobile. It's a mobile game. I've been playing that for the last couple years, actually. I've got like a login streak of like 965 days.
Matt, that's almost 3 years, by the way.
So I dabble a little bit into that. But since getting back into WoW, my Lords Mobile has definitely taken a hit. But other than that's really all I do game wise.
So this goes back to my ADD. I play everything. So in my off time, I'm a lot of times testing out games. So I will do a lot of key submission type stuff for games on the horizon that I think we stream a lot of Sea of Thieves, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of like, well, I don't ever see you guys stream a lot of different games. What we do, we always kind of like look for other games that potentially we think would mesh with our community, stuff like that. And a lot of times, 90% of them never make it to the channel, and we actually never stream them. But it doesn't mean that in the background, I don't get a key to a game, buy a game or whatever, and try it out and see if I like it, and kind of see would it be a good fit for me and Matt or not. And then in my spare time, I'm also trying to fit in those games that I know I can't stream and would love to play for just some relaxation time and stuff like that. And World of Warcraft is, one of those gems, but there are so many other games that I love, like RimWorld and stuff like that, and other games that I want to try out that I got to try to fit in between family time, stream time, testing of new games time, my World of Warcraft time, so I run out a lot of time with games, but I have a big catalog of them. That's for sure.
Yes, when you mentioned, family time, etc. In your guys' case, this is more for someone who doesn't like stream or content creating full time. We juggle work, with in your case is streaming, and your personal time. Like how are you finding a balance between, the amount of time you fellas stream, which is a full-time job for you fellas, and, stepping away from that to take care of everything else?
So it's easier now, in my opinion, than what it used to be. When I used to be full-time with another job, streaming in the evenings and then family, it was definitely challenging. And, shout out to my wife for being so supportive, because, she knew that when I came home from work, I'd have an hour, 2 hours of dinner / family time. And then it was streaming for 4 or 5 hours. Then it was preparing for bed, rinse, repeat, going back to regular job. It was a lot harder, but it was a lot more structured, I would say. When we eventually migrated to full time, it was easier in a sense of like, this became my work, right? So that 4 or 5 hours in the evening time when I would stream, that was now my 4 or 5 hours of free time. So it could expand. My family time was able to expand bigger, or that was my personal time for like regular gaming on my own, because I was able to move the stream to my normal work hours that we had. So it was a lot easier, but it honestly, the biggest thing, like I think with like even in any sense of any kind of like business, a lot of self-discipline. And Matt and I, since day one, have had like a schedule. And because of that, I think it's easier to just kind of plan things around it. You're filling in the gaps. We put a schedule out there, and then everything else in my life kind of filled in the gap type thing. So it's definitely a challenge to balance, but I think having that structure makes it easier. Now, Matt is a little more like...
Yeah, like, so for me, like, single, no kids, live by myself type thing. Like, so I'm kind of like, Joe's like, we need to do this. I'm like, okay. I'm just kind of like, we use for this interview, for instance, y'all talked it out and scheduled, for today. And he's like, hey, interview tomorrow with Cryptic, 1 o'clock. I'm like, okay. I don't have like those, things that I have to deal with like family wise. But I'll say like with us being full time, like working from like Joe's house, like we have the ability, and it goes back to us being a dual cast stream type thing, that if Joe needs to get up and step away and go handle something for 5 minutes, an hour, if he has to end like for him to end for the day, like I can still continue streaming and do what we need to do for that stream for the rest of the day. So it definitely makes it nice.
So I think it's easier in some respect, and then I think it's challenging in some respect. The reason why I say I think it's easier is what Matt just mentioned. Like we have a little more we can be a little more fluid because there's two of us, and we don't have to cancel streams all the time. And I can still go do my family things. We've had a couple of people have passed in our family that we've had to attend things, and one kind of carries the load for the other person, and that is a bonus to dual streaming. At the same time, it is sometimes hard because even though thank God, Matt, the sacrifice he makes with him being single and he just kind of goes on the whim with whatever. I still try to be mindful of it, right? Like I still, I don't want to just drop something on him last minute and be like, hey, we're doing this, or hey, this only works for me. I still want it to work for him as well too. So there's the challenging part of the dual stream is that I want to make sure that it meshes well with Matt. Like we've talked about, like, even just our normal hours of streaming. There have been times that I would change it. I'd be like, you know what, man, I just feel like we would do better in this slot. But it's not as easy to change things just because I want to change it, or vice versa.
Okay. So you guys, you guys with the dual stream sub, which we're going to cover here in a moment, is an interesting situation. There's not a whole lot of dual streamers out there. I know one other group. I don't know too many, but I guess I don't go surfing through Twitch looking for dual streamers. But this going to fall a bit of a kind of, I guess, a dual-handed question, like with the dual streaming. But we'll kind of, I guess, we'll put these two together. Is dual streaming, like you mentioned, being an advantage, trying to with scheduling. But what about your setup, your stuff you've had to add to your stream to do a dual stream, the extra equipment? What are you using for a setup? How did you kind of get into what you have for a setup? Like, where did you look for information regarding a dual setup? And how is that kind of affected maybe dealing with other things outside of streaming, like on a personal level, relationship wise, trying to, I guess, I don't know how to word this without sounding mean. How did you basically, I guess, with both the two of you, I mean, I had to make the decision to spend the money, but how did you go to your wife, Joe, and say, look, we need to spend blanket amount of money on this set of equipment to do this work? How was that affected, a personal side relationship for you as well?
All right. So that question's kind of long. There's like two parts to it.
It's kind of
Matt,
two parts,
I'll let Matt do the technical side, but on the personal side, like starting it up and all that. So when we started this, I told Matt, I said, hey, has anybody ever done this dual streaming thing? And he's like, yeah, there's like a couple out there. I think Matt was watching one at the time. He's like, there's a couple out there that do like the dual streaming. I said, all right, man, well, let's do it, but figure it out how to do it. I kind of put that on Matt to figure out, and Matt, it was his job to figure it out. I'll let him talk about like the complications of that.
So basically, like Joe said, like I only knew of one stream that was a dual stream. And there may have been more. But like I said, I only knew of one, and their setup was different than how we plan on doing it. Like, we came into it looking at being able to show both gameplays, at the same time, different times, both cameras and this and that. So honestly, there really was no information out there. It was all kind of like just doing research on what I needed, knowing that I needed to put his gameplay onto my computer to show it. So knowing that, having to research that to figure out, I needed a capture card, and then because originally we started out with two computers, his computer and my computer, and I captured his computer through an external capture card. And then, then it goes into the process of setting up OBS and like audio stuff is the worst ever. Anybody who streams can tell you that audio is like your biggest like problem majority of the time. But really there was no information. It was kind of like us just kind of sitting down, thinking about what we needed to do to make it work, and then researching each step of the process and building the computers that we needed to build to make it happen. Then you advance a year or two in the, down the line, and we added a third computer to the mix, and then, sitting down and, again, going back through research and stuff like that, figuring out how to add a third computer, and making everything work.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest part, was that there was no guides. There was no like, oh, you need to do this here, do blah, blah, blah. And that definitely made it challenging. But now to kind of like talk about the point of like, you know, the money and like my wife, stuff like that. So when we decided to do this, we thought about doing this. I went to my wife and I said, hey, we're thinking about doing this streaming thing. And we kind of explained what it was. And she was like, well, that sounds cool. You know, you play a lot of video games like that. Sounds like something you enjoy doing. So she was on board from the get-go. And I have been very, very fortunate because we've met a lot of people that one of the biggest questions I get is, well, how do you get your significant other to, you know, support you? Because it is frustrating. When you start out, you go through droughts of no follows and what feels like no progression on your stream, and can cause a lot of pressure. But I guess I'm just very lucky. My wife has 100%, you know, always been very supportive and like, hey, well, what's happening new? What's going on? Or when I was down, she'd be like, go keep your head up. Remember why you're doing this. So when it came to the financial side of it, when Matt and I, when Matt kind of figured out like what we would need, we looked for an investor. We decided to treat this from the get-go as an actual business venture in a sense of like how we were going to set it up. One main reason is there's two of us, and we needed it to be very clear and concrete on how we were going to do things. Because, you know, if I start up a Twitch stream and I blow up and become super popular, you know, great, that all goes to me and I'm dealing with it. But we had to come to an agreement with how we were going to make this work with there being two of us. So we found an investor. My investor was my mother-in-law, and, you know, said, hey, we need X amount of money and we would like X amount of time frame to pay you back. And she was, you know, on board and said, hey, sounds good. And that's what we did. We front loaded. Now, I don't recommend this for everybody, but we bought new computers for it. We bought gear for it. We bought microphones. We bought all the setup for it so that we felt like, you know, at the age of 30 something years old, when we go into this, we're going to try to go all in and do our best and set some goals. And then, you know, we had the goal to pay her back in a certain amount of time, and we well smashed that. But that was pretty much how on the financial side, how it worked. So it was never really anything that kind of took away from like my personal family or dipped into my personal funds in order to start this venture. It was like I had taken a loan or investor over here, and everything that we were making from the stream, if we were making anything from the stream, went right back into it and was always kind of kept separate from my personal ventures.
You know, that's very interesting. Did not know that. That is a big today I learned from Joe and Matt. Like that's impressive. I don't know if anyone else has ever thought of that. I never thought of that idea before.
So we the thing is that like we, you know, going into this, what we've been doing this for 5 years now, coming up 4.5 years. So we were well into our mid 30s on a platform where, you know, the younger 20s, mid 20s was the average age of caster and stuff like that. So we already kind of felt like we were behind the ball. And we felt like if we needed to do this, we kind of needed to go all in. And we felt that there was a safe number that if we could borrow, that even if this flopped, we'd get jobs flipping burgers to pay back what we needed to, because the number wasn't going to be so exponential, but we would be prepared on the front end.
Very, very smart. Very, very smart. Interesting. So I guess that this kind of falls right perfectly into, and you mentioned your mother-in-law. So how do family and friends react when you tell them what you do for a living now? Or when you started, I guess, streaming, when you know, hey, what do you do? Oh, I do, you know, I stream on Twitch or YouTube, whatever. How do people react when you tell them that's what your job is?
Well, I can so family wise, and I know this goes for both of us, but both sides have been very supportive from literally day one of us setting our eyes on becoming Twitch streamers. My family, you know, consists you know, basically my mom and my grandpa, and both of them, you know, neither one of them very tech savvy, especially my grandfather who's 80 something years old. But he was still supportive of it, you know, knowing that something I enjoyed, you know, whatever. Same goes with my mom. Now go a couple years, my nephew has like become seriously infatuated with streaming. That's all he literally talks about 24/7 is.
I mean, your brother's into it too now.
Yeah, like
it's crazy.
My brother watches now, and he's only been watching for 6 months, I think.
Yeah, and you've been doing this for 4.5 years.
4.5 years, and my brother just started watching like 6 months ago. But it's gotten my nephew to the part that literally all he talks about is playing Sea of Thieves with Joe and Matt, or Joe and Daniel, because he calls him Uncle Daniel. But playing Sea of Thieves, like I was getting a haircut today, and in our barbers, that's all they always, there's big supporters of us, and they got stickers, of ours on their mirrors and stuff like that. But literally, both of them were talking about how if we don't play with my nephew after his birthday, because that's all he talked about was for his birthday, we were going to play with him, that they weren't going to cut our hair anymore. So, like, it's most of our friends are like, you do what for a living? You're like, well, we stream video games on Twitch, and people watch and hang out and talk, and they're like, people watch other people play video games. I'm like, it's I myself still kind of question why people watch other people, but in my when I'm not on Twitch, I literally have Twitch up on one of my computer screens at home. If it's just background noise or if I'm like actively watching. But it's a thing. Like I enjoy. It's funny because I never came from video games for the most part until we started playing World of Warcraft in like 2004. But I enjoy watching people play like certain games. I'm big into Sea of Thieves, so I watch a lot of Sea of Thieves streamers. We did a little GTA RP for a little bit. I enjoy watching GTA RP, watching like those storylines and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things that it's fun to do.
I think the hardest thing for us, or the weirdest thing with friends and family, was explaining what Twitch was. So like, I still run into 95% of the people that I run into, friends, family, or whatever, and I say that I stream on Twitch. People don't know what that means, and they don't know what Twitch is. It's crazy that Twitch is the number one platform out there for streaming, yet it's still unknown to what I feel like is like 95% of the world. And then when you say you play video games, I feel like a lot of like people automatically assume it's like an esport type thing, and don't realize that there's just like an entertainment factor that people watch as well, and just a community kind of thing as well. But again, I feel like this is one thing that I find is a very important part of streaming that you can't really dictate, is the support that you get from like your family members and stuff like that. We have had everyone on board with us 100% the entire time. And I know that like I've run into a lot of streamers that have tried to give it a go, and some of their biggest hurdles are getting past family and friends, just not having that foundation of support. And I think if you don't have that, it definitely is going to hurt you a ton.
Well, that's very true. And it's great to hear that your families are so behind you, and it's never been a big battle for either one of you to kind of get into it. I mean, I know I, as myself, a little lucky as well. My wife has always been behind me with pretty much everything I've ever done in the content creation world. So it's good to hear that you guys have that great support system behind you. You had mentioned that you play quite a bit of stuff off stream. I know, Matt, you said your World of Warcraft is kind of your big thing in your mobile game. Regarding games, has there ever been a game that you've streamed, or I guess you guys, your streaming is your main, your YouTube is mostly highlights and stuff of your streams. Has there ever been a game that you've streamed that you no longer like just because it was bringing in the views?
Because it was bringing the views?
Yes. In other words, you're playing a game, you guys are no longer feeling the game. You're no longer like, I don't really want to play this anymore, but everybody that's watching the stream is here to watch us play this particular game.
No, I know. So I feel like there's gonna be people in your comments that are gonna call bullcrap on that, but I say no. Let me explain something. So we have played games that are definitely long in the tooth, or let's say I have, like, it's not as hype as was the day before yesterday kind of thing, but I will not play a game if I'm not enjoying it. there have been a couple times that we've maybe ended a stream or stopped playing that game for that day and took a week off. Like you see these example, right? There was a time back in 2017, January, when combat was one of the worst. And I got in there and I loved the game, but I just could not stand the combat. It was just so clunky, was not working well, and it was frustrating. And I was frustrated because I really enjoyed the game, and that's what was frustrating. I couldn't play it, that we took a break. So when it comes to views, sure, there are games that we do better in. Let's say like a 7 Days to Die or Sea of Thieves, right? If we go and play a RimWorld, our numbers would plummet. We would or not plummet, but they would definitely be like, let's say, a 40%, 30% reduction in viewership, right? It's not going to stop me from playing that game. Now, I can recognize that I can't play that game all the time, but it doesn't mean that I'm forced to go back to Sea of Thieves in 7 days. We a lot of times go back to those because of comfortability of playing it, the ease of being able to talk with our community. Hey, I don't have anything else I really want to play right now. And these are staple games that we've always played and enjoyed. I can easily fire up a new world in 7 days, or I could easily get on a boat and go sail around for a little bit. And I know that once I get in it, I'll start having some fun.
Mm-hmm.
We don't drive it upon solely that we have to play these games. And we're going to play it today just because our number will be higher. Because I think that when you start doing that, you start resenting the game. You start resenting the people, like things in your community. When people start pointing out that you're not having a good time or blah, 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 you start resenting streaming in general. And we just can't risk that, especially when this is what we do as a full-time job.
Okay. So it's kind of say you're not a good enough actor to put on an act to say that I really like this game when you really don't. So
I don't think it's fair to our community to do that.
Well, that's
so
no,
if that makes sense, like I don't want our community, like I would never want our community to feel like it's the same thing with like sponsor content we've done in the past. I'm never going to play something that I don't feel like sponsored thing that I don't feel like it's going to mesh with our community. Does that mean that we're going to play something different and try to open up the community's eyes and like, hey, let's give this a go, or you guys may like this? We've done extensive like background into whether or not we feel like it'll work, and I just feel like that if I'm disingenuous about playing it just because I'm doing it for the numbers, then I don't know what kind of caster I am doing that.
And honestly, like you can be a good actor or whatever, but your community, like the viewers, still know when you aren't enjoying a game or if you're having a bad time or whatever. They can see that. Like it, as good of an actor you may be, like you still like throw off expressions or some certain things that the community picks up on, and like like there's been one time like that in all of our time that of us streaming, we were playing a game and we had people whispering us like, hey, you guys aren't having fun, y'all can go ahead and like swap games, because it was a game that the community wanted us to play. It was a alpha game, it was definitely early access type game, but they could tell like we weren't enjoying it, and they were whispering us like, hey, we can tell you guys aren't having fun, y'all like swap games, guys. We literally had people whispering us. We were doing our best to enjoy the game and whatever, but they can still tell.
You weren't struggling through the game though just because of views. You were trying to enjoy a game.
Yeah.
Trying to get as much out of it.
Yeah. It wasn't the views. It was just the game in general. But the viewers can tell. So there's no sense in trying to fake it.
So, as someone who's watched your streams for not as long as you guys have been around, because I haven't really been in the streaming world as long as you fellas have been streaming, but you guys have done some amazing work for some charities, and you guys have had some amazing charity streams. Let's say what, I don't know, and it's kind of hard to sum up one particular point, but what are some of the high points of your streaming career that you guys would like to talk about? Like, what are some of your kind of, we're not going to say pinnacle, because we don't want to say you guys are there yet, but what are some of your high points that you guys have, either with a game, as you've played something that's happened in a game, something with, with the community? What has kind of been some of your high points?
Well, for streaming, Oh man, I would have to say that the charity work is probably probably the highest point for us. We've raised since 2019 $33,000, almost $34,000 in charity, and we are not that big of a streamers. You know what I mean? So for us to have a community as small as ours and as supportive to raise over $34,000 almost in charity, that was something I didn't see 4.5 years ago starting streaming. 4.5 years ago, it was, hey, we play games. You and I have a nice friendly banter back and forth like brothers. It would probably be something cool to see on stream. And some of the things that we have experienced over those years between getting letters from people in the community about how we've influenced them or shaped their lives. I struggle with things like, I have OCD and ADD, which can lead to depression, anxiety. I have a family of 3 that I have with my wife, and to hear how people have messaged and we've have positively influenced them, or they appreciate the things we do or can relate to it and stuff like that. Those things I always say this, there's a lot of intrinsic rewards that I never expected. We looked for the traditional extrinsic rewards. Hey, can we stream, play video games, and it support our video game habit? Oh, can it support our streaming habit? Oh, can it support our livelihood? There are people that are been dealing with some terrible things in their lives and have come to us and said that, we've turned things around for them, or we've raised money and saved lives because of our community, stuff like that. So just, I don't know one specific one, but just all that in general.
Yeah. I was gonna say, before we, ever got partnered or this or that, I can remember even early on us getting a message on, I think it was Instagram or something. Somebody sent us a message talking about how they was in a dark time in their life, and and it was because of our stream that they have pulled through, and this and they're in a better place, and the thoughts and stuff they were having, they're not having them no more. And literally within the first couple months of us streaming, we got that message, and we don't get them all the time, but the ones we have gotten have really hit home, and made an impact. Just thinking that because of what I'm doing, I'm able to make somebody happy, or to turn their life around, and then like Joe said, going into the charity work that our community has been able to do, and and this is just in the last year and a half. It's absolutely amazing.
That's one thing that you guys said I've kind of wanted to shed some light on, because you guys do some great charity work. I know you've set some lofty goals, and your community has stepped up in ways. I know it wasn't bearded guys gaming for a short period of time. It was one bearded guy and a not so bearded guy, because you guys had a lofty goal that you didn't think was the community would hit, and you end up losing your beard, Joe.
We lost beards and grown tattoos in places that
I know Matt just recently had his posterior marked with Joe's mug, and I know you've already had Matt's mug on your posterior. So, you guys take it above and beyond. I mean, you guys definitely deserve a huge round of applause and a thanks from a lot of different people that aren't unfortunately able to come here and say thanks. I mean, as someone that's been to your streams, watched your streams, and seen the work you guys done for your communities and for the charities and your communities done for them is amazing. It's awe-inspiring to see that a community rather kind of gather up behind you fellas and support you fellas and support your charities. This is awesome to see. It's definitely pretty damn cool. So
yeah, it's pretty real. We're very fortunate.
So I mean, that kind of comes a couple of questions, like what is your what is your probably your favorite thing about doing the streaming thing is likely what you've covered. You guys are definitely like that. But what maybe kind of on the opposite scale? I don't want to bring it down after such positive. But what are some of the kind of maybe your guys' least favorite things about the streaming, doing it like encompassing? I don't want you to pick one or two individual little things and nitpick, but what are kind of some of the things that are kind of like your least favorite part about this?
So I'll give you an example. So like in a traditional job, right? Let's say I don't know, I worked at a grocery store. If I was having a bad day, maybe I didn't feel good, mentally having a bad day, I still have an obligation to go to work. And I go to work, they're still going to ask me to put on a happy face and do my job the best, but I can sling bananas, and throw them down in the anger that I may have, or if I don't feel good, I can kind of be running a half step behind and stuff like that. And still get paid my hourly wage or whatever my salary is. So one of the challenges that I have found with streaming is that because you are self-employed, you also have that same business app obligation. And it's hard because with streaming, you're there to entertain, right? And so some days when you're just not feeling good or just not feeling it, you still kind of be there, got to kind of be there. Now you can go back and say, well, that's the bonus of Matt and I can take a day off and Matt can take a day off, but you also don't want to take too many days off. There's a discipline that's required to be there. And that has been one of the harder balances that I've found over the 4.5 years. If like mentally I'm not having a good day, I need to get on there and try to find a way to put on a happy face and do my thing. Now, the plus side of that is that most time when I get on and start streaming, I kind of start feeling better. I may have mentally been in a funk or didn't feel well. When I get on there and the community comes out and they talk and we're talking about food or whatever. And next thing you know, I've kind of not in a funk as much as I was. But that has been one of the harder things of streaming is that, like I said, it's like running your own business and you got to be there. You got to show up. You got to come to work. And it can be hard to sometimes to not want to just take a day off and another day off till you feel like you're mentally there. Really.
And I was gonna say, I think I'd agree with all that. And with us being like the dual cast, when one of us isn't here, our content isn't as good.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, Joe can survive without me. He's done it. I can survive without him. I've done it. But our content just isn't as good. Like our stream is based around the two of us, and when it's not the two of us, it's just not as quality, So, as nice as it is for us to be able to stream with just the one of us or whatever, we like both of us being here is what makes Bearded Guys Gaming.
I think one more thing that is probably one of the harder things with streaming that I felt is the constant pressure to we're all out here trying to be discoverable and have people find you, and you often become like your biggest critic. And it's easy, as humans, it's very easy to see other streamers and be like, well, what am I not doing that they're doing? What are we doing wrong, or what can we do to grow, or what can we do to be more discovered and stuff like that. And so it's very easy, in my opinion, to put a lot of unneeded pressure on yourself. And that's something over the 4.5 years I've seen that there's been times that I'm like, yo, I got to take a step back, like I'm adding more stress than needs to be.
So do you feel, this is a question, I guess, for the two of you, and I know I know you're going to get an honest answer. Do you ever feel guilty whenever you can't be there? I know, like with my job, my full-time job, if I'm out sick, I always feel obligated that I'm not there to help out and do my part. But when every one of you fellows can't be there, regardless of being sick or other obligations outside of it, do you have a guilt feeling that you're leaving the other fellow in the lurch because you're not there?
100%.
100%.
In fact, I would almost say like almost every single time one of us is like, hey man, I'm sorry I couldn't make it today. And the other one's usually like, It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. So, no worries. Get better. Feel whatever you had to go do this or that. Let's say both of us can't be there. Sometimes when you have a day off, like, for example, Sunday, we were off Sunday this past Sunday. We were off Sunday because we were watching the hockey game. Hockey game happened to come on around the exact same time that we were starting to stream and all that. And we do a shorter day on Sunday right now. And I was like, you know what? Let's just cancel the stream. Something about Sunday before the hockey game came on and after the hockey game was over felt dirty. Mm-hmm. I felt like, I was supposed to stream today. And I feel like, we weren't on and, where people are going to like miss that we weren't there. There's like this, I don't know. You feel like instead of being like, woo, got this extra day off, it feels good. You tend to lean more towards the way that you said.
You feel guilty.
Yeah.
It's like calling in sick when you're not really sick.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you might have had a good time, you're like, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a natural human emotion or what the deal is, but yeah, it is you got to think, right? So there's already a sense of guilt that I have. I play video games for a living with my best friend. So I already feel like I'm not doing, like I should be hating my job, right? Where like most people, not most people hate their jobs, but most people, work is work. And I already play video games with my best friend and it's a blast. And there's already a sense of guilt there a little bit that, someone's like, well, I got to go dig ditches today. And I'm like, well, I'm going to sit down and play as a pirate and get up at my leisure and use the restroom when I want and drink what I want and be merry, and so when you're out on a day, it just ramps that up even bigger,
You shouldn't be entitled to playing hooky from your job when your job is playing video games.
It's very hard. Yes. And there's a crazy part is a lot of people that think that way too, that agree with it, right? At the end, this is still a job, still business. Matt and I have a CPA we have to go to every that we have a CPA that we deal with when it comes to our taxes and accounting. We're in charge of maintaining a business license. We're an LLC. We have all these things that we do on the back end for the business side. Honestly, the last year or so, we haven't pushed too much when it comes to sponsorship and paid content, but there's all kinds of things you have to do and contacting people for like opportunities to do things, peripheral companies, game developers out there trying to get keys. And like I said, there's opportunities for paid sponsorship. It's a job, not to mention that's all the back end stuff, not the 8 to 10 hours that you're actually on stream every day that you're streaming. Right. And there are people that say, hey, even with all that, you should feel guilty. It's, you're playing video games and it's like, okay, well,
I don't think you should feel guilty as someone that has dipped her toe into it. And never come close to success you guys had. It's tough to balance that. I know what it's like to work full time and try to stream, and it's definitely a challenge. Content creation outside of a regular, added on with a regular job, I should say, is definitely a hard damn thing to do. It's like two jobs and one, and sometimes you're only getting paid for one. So for you guys to attack this the way you did is start out and say, look, we're going to do this and like, let's do it as a business and set it up and do the whole investor path. That is incredible that you guys have took this and as like, bull by the horns and said, look, this is what we're doing and we're going to do it. And, now you're sitting here with well over 50,000 followers on Twitch. You're doing amazing things charity-wise, raising money for charities. You guys, are now doing your thing outside of stream with some of your followers doing wow and stuff. You guys are extremely busy with your family and everything else. You guys are definitely doing great at balancing everything, it seems. And I just want to, like I said, thank you again for, giving me the opportunity to have you on my show and do the interview. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give you the floor here for a minute. You guys can say what you got coming up, what's going on, any big events, any new charity events you're doing, anything at all. If you guys want to take a few minutes to kind of self-promote yourself, feel free.
Oh,
put you right on the spot. Right on the spot.
Man,
no warning at all.
Kind of because, like, honestly, we don't have anything too crazy coming up. We're on our normal Thursday through Mondays, doing our thing. we get asked all the time, what are you guys looking forward to? What's happening? We constantly have events that are happening with Sea of Thieves. We're very lucky to be partnered with them. They keep us pretty busy just with all the frequent updates they have. You know, our next charity event will be next year. We're very big in participating in St. Jude. This year we qualified to go to the summit for St. Jude. We got invited to that, but unfortunately with COVID happening this year, that didn't happen. So, but next year we're looking at trying to beat a bigger and better goal than we did this year. Hopefully with no body modifications as goals. I think I'm done with the body modifications. No more beard missing or tattoos, I believe. I still owe a tattoo actually on my arm. So, but we want to thank you for having us on because, you know, we appreciate it. You know, at the end of the day, Matt and I are just like two guys, old guys now as time goes on.
Easy now.
Out here playing video games.
Easy now. Don't throw that old word around.
we're just two guys playing video games, and we don't have any, you know, our gimmick, I guess you could say, if there was a gimmick, is that we have beards and there's two of us on stream. But other than that, we're just two guys playing video games, and we don't do them very well. We hope that people just enjoy being there and enjoy us and our banter back and forth. And we're fortunate, you know, when someone like you from our community, who's been a person of our community for you, how long has it been now? At least over a year.
Oh yeah, it's been well a year and a half. Oh yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
I mean,
pushing 2 years probably.
We're thankful to have people like you in the community, and then for you to ask, you know, to interview us. It's just such a, you know, we sit back and we go, well, you know, we don't really do anything, you know, so we really appreciate the thought, and it means a lot. You thinking of us and reaching out to us and bringing us on.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you guys doing it, and I sorry to put you on the spot about what's coming up, but I know you guys sometimes like to surprise, so I figured I'd surprise you guys.
Hey, listen, thank you for keeping us on our toes.
Well, I'll wrap it up here. I'm going to overthink as I always do. But if anybody is wanting to watch these guys, follow these guys, catch up with these guys, all the links to their socials, their Twitch, their YouTube, etc., is all going to be down below. And if you reach out to them, hit them up on Twitter. If you want to reach out to me, same thing, Twitter, Facebook, or not Facebook, sorry. You guys are on Facebook, right?
Yeah, we're on Facebook.
I'm not Facebook. You guys are Facebook. I'm Twitter. I'm on YouTube. All links required to be down below. And we'll see you all next time.